Okay, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa salatu wa salam ala Sayyidina Anbiya'i wal Mursaleen. Allahumma alimna ma yanfa'una wa anfa'na ma tu'allimna wa zidna bi fadlika ilman wa ta'liman innaka ala kulli shay'in qadir. Okay, we did this. وعن خادم يحتاج إليه. So you have a servant that you need, and you need, or you have a slave that you need, and you cannot sell that slave because you need that slave. And then because you have that slave, you need to support that slave. So that all costs too much, and so you're excused, as opposed to something that you don't need. Okay, so it says ولو احتاج إلى صرف ما يحج به لتزوجه مع خوف عنة فالأفضل له التزوج به لكن يستقر عليه الحج لأن النكاح من الملاذ وإذا شد فلا يمنع استقراره. وأفتى الشهاب الرملي بوجوب الحج على من بيده وظيفة أمكنه النزول عنها بما يكفيه للحج وإن لم يكن له غيرها. Right, two really important, useful fatwas. So you need to get married. So should I get married or should I go on Hajj? Right? Should I get married or should I go on Hajj? So it says لو احتاج إلى صرف ما يحج به. He has the money to go on Hajj. Right? But now he needs to sarf. He needs to spend that money. Right? Here means to spend. إلى صرفي, to spend that money. لتزوجه, to get married. مع خوف عنة, because he's scared of falling into zina. He's scared of falling into zina. So he says, فالأفضل له تزوج. It is better for him, sunnah for him, to go ahead and get married. لكن يستقر عليه الحج. However, the obligation is still there. So he's not considered unable to go on Hajj, which is interesting. Okay, he's not considered not able to go on Hajj. Now, this is problematic because usually we say that somebody who cannot get married, doesn't have the funds to get married, is considered faqir because he doesn't have basic things that he needs. So if he's faqir, how is he obliged to go on Hajj? Does that make sense? So I think the
Yes.
answer is he it's not that he can't afford to get married. He can afford to get married. So therefore, so there's that moment where he can afford to get married, so therefore he's obliged to do it. Something like that. Allahu A'lam. So anyway, the practical upshot, your friend's asking, should I get married or should I go on Hajj? I don't know what to do. The answer is get married. Okay. Does that mean that I'm not obliged to go on Hajj later on? No, you're still obliged to go on Hajj. Okay? You're still obliged to go on Hajj. That's number one. Number two, it says لأن النكاح من الملاذ. So interestingly, marriage is not really considered a darura. It's not considered a darura, right? So fear of zina, right? Khawf al-anat, which is fear of zina, is not considered a darura. It's considered of the malad. It's considered of, this is just a luxury, a pleasure. So therefore, it's not essential, right? Similarly, we have a scenario. We say, for example, if somebody puts a gun to your head and says, "Sleep with this woman or I'll kill you." Number one, it's haram to do that because you're not allowed to do it, even if they kill you. Sorry, that's not the example. The example is, what was it? Um, Trying to think what it was. It's not the example. That's. I think they talk about it there, right? But basically, they're saying that like that's you're kind of making your, like they're saying that basically sexual attraction is like within your control, and you're like making yourself attracted to this woman as opposed to turning away from her, even in your heart, right? Um, Similarly, the issue of um, like you're the only person who can do an operation on a woman, and if you did an operation on this woman, you would the only way you could do it would be touching her with lust. Is that some of them say, well, that's ridiculous because lust is something up to you in your control. so you can like turn it off, so to speak. So it's interesting the way they look at this thing, right? So often, often if you listen to my class on like the defemina, we will talk about sexual need as almost like a darura. خُلِقَ الْإِنسَانُ ضَعِيفًا, right? Man was created weak. ما لا تحملنا ما لا طاقة لنا به, as the tafsir of some of the salaf was, النساء ما لا طاقة لنا به. It's something that is you can't say no to, right? It's something that is very dangerous, and it's almost like a darura, but it's not actually a darura. Meaning people are not actually you're not actually forced to do that, right? We don't technically look at it in that way. Go ahead, Badr, and then Talib.
So you said you were saying that you don't think that or you think that somebody who doesn't get married but is able to financially is not considered a faqir because of the ability to afford it. But wouldn't there be situations like historically and even in modern day where somebody can't get married, but it's not because of money, it's just
Yeah, well, what I'm
sim-
talking about is I'm saying here it says, so if you say put in the place of marriage, let's put food. So I say I have money to go on Hajj, but I need to spend it on food. So in which case I am not obliged to go on Hajj now, nor am I obliged to go on Hajj later on because I was never able to go on Hajj. Okay. Um, and then we and so and then we label somebody who doesn't have enough money to buy the things what they need as poor. So the issue is this person's kind of poor in that they don't have what they need, right? And so the answer is they do because they have the money to do it, right? Does that make sense? So what you're
yeah,
asking about
okay.
as in mutlaqan, like, oh, I can't get married for other reasons, that's something else, right? But here we're saying, oh, for the financial issues, I have this money, however much it costs, $15,000 from the US to go on Hajj. Do I get married or do I go on Hajj? So I got married instead. Okay, great. So now you now instead of going on Hajj, you got married. Why? Because you feared haram, falling into haram. Okay. So you did what was best, but يستقر عليك الحج, right? It still rested. There was a time when you were able to go on Hajj and you didn't. So it's not considered. It's not like food, right? Or rent or something like that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, go ahead, Talib.
A thing I can't wrap my head around is that the books talk about the obligation of Hajj and being able to postpone it in a quite like easy manner, as if it's like not a big deal at all, even though like among the core teachings of our deen is that death is imminent and postponing something which can lead to sin is like should be like at least seriously makruh. Like, how does this work?
Yeah, but then that would be the same with the prayer. If the same thing with the prayer, does that mean is it obligatory to pray dhuhr as soon as it comes in?
But am I not excused for having the intention but not like doing it at the beginning? In co-
Yeah, so it's the same thing. It's called wajib muwassa'. That's the term for Hajj and for the prayer we call it wajib muwassa'. Same discussion. We had the same discussion.
But correct me if I'm wrong. When I die at the beginning of Dhuhr, but I had the firm intention of praying Dhuhr like 2 hours later, am I not sinful? Sorry, am I sinful in this case?
You're not sinful. Yeah, same thing with Hajj. You're not sinful.
I am not. If I like have the firm intention to do it next year, then
You
I'm not
have intention
sinful.
to pay Hajj, but the issue is tabath. So the issue is what's the difference is you die after 5 minutes of Dhuhr comes in. Nobody has to pray Dhuhr for you. Whereas Hajj, somebody has to pray Hajj for you. That is correct. So
Hmm.
the mas'ala is that delaying dhuhr when you know you're going to be executed in 5 minutes. So I say, Talib, you see the clock? You have in 5 minutes, we are going to execute you. So then you know you have 5 minutes left, and you now delay dhuhr past that time. That's a problem, right? So that's now sinful. But otherwise, you have the intention of doing Hajj and you're delaying it in the words of Muwassa' and then you die on the way. The issue is that it's not that you're sinful. The issue is that you are. It's in your dhimma, that's all. That you have that Hajj has to be done from your tarika, from your inheritance.
And does this decide, sorry, last question, does this decide whether or not I am sinful, or does this aspect decide whether my inheritors are sinful or not?
So here's the thing, Sheikh Talib, is you can't be sinful in retrospect. That's not possible.
Mm-hmm.
Something can't happen that made me sinful, right? So let's think about this. Let's think about this issue with the credit card, okay? So the Hanafis, they say this, they say if you get a credit card, zero APR credit card, right? You know this term APR, do you have the same term in German? Like no
APR?
interest. No, what is it? Something annual, something, whatever. There's
I
no
mean, they call it
interest.
0% financing or
Okay,
something.
0% finance. Anyway, for 2 years. So you're gonna get this credit card. It's $10,000. You're gonna use $10,000. Do you think you can pay back that $10,000 in 2 years? Yes, I think I can. Okay, so the Hanafis, many modern Hanafis, they say it's halal because what is haram is actually paying the interest. Okay, so so we Shafis, we say no, it's the contract itself. The contract, like saying when you said I'm willing to pay the interest, that was the sin, right? Like what you did. So for the Hanafis, I don't know, it's a very useful dispensation and many people need to follow it. But the issue is like do you become sinful when you actually turn out unable to pay it? You know? Like how does that work? Like you got sick and you lost your job. So then 2 years later, when you had to pay that money, you couldn't. So then you became sinful because you were sick. Like that doesn't make any sense, right? So sin is your own moral action. I chose to do A, I chose to B. You can't be sinful in retrospect. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. Yes, it makes
Right.
sense.
Like let's take another example. I used your pencil without your permission, thinking that it was okay, and then it turned out that you did mind. So the hukam is based on my dhan. I thought you wouldn't mind me using your pencil, so I picked it up and I used it. And then you said, Freed, why use my pencil? And I said, oh, I thought you wouldn't mind. Okay. So the one thing is the repercussions. What happens now that I used your property without your permission? That's one issue. That's to do with repercussions. The other issue is what I did. I picked up someone else's property thinking that they didn't mind. Right. So it doesn't become haram when you didn't overlook it. You know what I'm saying? Because that doesn't make any sense. Your moral action is based on what you're saying. So here you did ta'khir مع ظن الإمكان. خلاص, I believe I will be able to do it. خلاص, there we go. Right? You can't become sinful at that point. Same thing with praying on time. Right? Praying on time is not whether you actually pray on time. Praying on time is, did you start the prayer at a time that you thought you would be able to finish the whole prayer in? Right? Whether or not you actually pray on time is totally irrelevant, right? So let's say, for example, you delayed the prayer to waqt al-hurma, okay? So it's now 1 minute left until Asr, and you do not believe that you can pray 4 rak'ahs in 1 minute. Subhanallah, a miracle happens and you pray 4 rak'ahs plus your 4 rak'ah sunnahs in 30 seconds. Subhanallah, okay? So a miracle happens that you can pray all of those. So does it become halal now? No. The point is, what you did is aliman, amidan, you did ta'khir of the prayer to a time that wouldn't normally allow you to do it. So if you're sinful, right? So you can't so the point is something can't come afterwards and make what you did sinful. Does that make sense, Talib?
Yes, inshallah.
Apart from your wife, she can come along and say everything you did was sinful. I don't believe you. She can do ibtal of all your good deeds.
This
You
was
see?
this was just like a big thing for me. Like, oh no, I have to like make Hajj as soon as possible, otherwise I will die in this state, and so on and so
Yeah,
forth.
but that. So this is that is so I don't know when this debate came among the Salaf, right? When did the Salaf start first debating this issue? You know, because that is their attitude. Like, why would you delay it?
Hmm.
You know,
Barakallahu.
or for example, what's more important? What's more important? Taking your kids, making sure that your oldest son goes to university or that all your kids go to Hajj. So imagine, for example, I don't know if university is still free in Germany, but in England it's not free anymore. It's expensive, and America is expensive, right? So many people are like, oh, I need to pay for my son to go to university. This is expensive. But what's more important? Sending your first son to university, or hey, alhamdulillah, all of my kids have now reached puberty. Let's take them all on Hajj. Let's just go. Let's sell the house. They've all reached puberty. Mortgage the house. Khalas, take them all, right? Youngest is 13, 15, 18. Let's take them all on Hajj, right? That's a huge thing, right? So it's like a thing that you should do. Like number one priority in life, go on Hajj, right? Number one priority in life, Fard Ain, right? This is everything else is irrelevant, right? Everything else can be picked up at a certain time, right? So 100% you're true. The way that we look at things is this is the last moment in your life. You're not going to live past 2 minutes past the hour. That's it. This is the end of your life, right? If there's something else you should be doing, go and do it. That's 100%. And the attitude is, yes, go on Hajj ASAP and don't delay for anything, right? But I would advise everybody gets married at 12 as well. Get married at 12. Get married before puberty. There we go. And yeah. Khair, inshallah. Go ahead, Yaqub, you had a question?
So I think a lot of people wouldn't agree that the lust is controllable if you're doing like a procedure on a woman. So if they don't believe they can control their lust, it would be haram. If they believe they can control their lust, it would be halal for them, like a surgeon, to do with surgery.
So say it again. You're saying that many people would feel that they could control it.
No, I think many people feel like I can't. So
Right.
therefore, the surgery be haram for you to do then, because obviously there's probably other surgeons.
Yeah, so assuming that there's no, so basically imagine this scenario where the only person, let's say there's only 5 people on the face of the earth that could do this surgery, and for some reason they could only do it without gloves on, which is a bit silly. Okay, or they could, or let's say they have to look at least. They have to look at least, and they're only men, and it's only men that could do it. Okay, and then all the other men are not righteous, or they're not upright, or they're not Muslim. So in which case they're all for fusaq. Okay, so in which case you're the only person to do it. So would you say I will do it but I can't do it without feeling lust? Or do we say somebody else should do it? Right? And so from what I remember is that, there's these discussions that they have is that, these things are controllable. Like lust is a choice. It's like a ladha that you're choosing to do, It's like sadism, Like, can you control your sadism on Eid? Like when you kill the sheep, you're like, I love killing sheep. I love seeing the blood. Like, is it something you control? Like, yeah, it's something you control. You're a weird person. Stop having those weird feelings, And so the point is, it's not always looked at as a darura, right? It's sometimes looked at as very important, but it's not really a darura. Like you're not really forced into it, if that makes sense. Yeah, that was the issue with yeah. I remember now. It's the issue with is like la yutasawwar al-ikrah al-zina, right? So for a man, la yutasawwar, like it's not conceivable to be forced to commit zina, right? Because you have to get involved somehow. Like you can't just, So for a woman, it's different, but for a man, it's like it's not la yutasawwar, right? It's inconceivable for a man to be forced to commit zina because his sexual attraction is something that he has to kind of like be a part of, so to speak, right? So that's that discussion there.
So but if he thinks he can't, and there's all the dururiyat then you noted.
Yeah, so then if he can't, so what's more important? So there's two things here. Number one is hifth al-haya, preserving her life, number one, versus him violating her body, which is looking at with lust or touching with lust, and that potentially leading to zina. So one is muhaqqaq, one is realized, which is life or death. The other one is just a dhari'ah, just a means, right? So when we say you can't look with lust, it's because that will lead to touching with lust. And you can't touch with lust because that would lead to intercourse. And intercourse out of marriage would lead to it vitiates the issue of what's it called? of nasab and ard, right? So that's a step, that's really far away. So what's a priority? Priority is saving life, right? No question about it. You know? So literally there's one person who can do this. You have to pick up this lady. This lady just fell off, like, you have to save this girl. You and this lady just ran out of prison and you're escaping through the middle of nowhere. And actually, it's actually pretty awkward. Like, well, what do you do? Leave her? And she's passed out, you're carrying her, and it's actually very difficult for you, right? To control your thoughts. Like, well, regardless, you can't just leave her, can you?
But if there's no darura and there's no lust,
If
you're fine either
no
way.
darura, then you can't touch her and look at her either. So there we go. That's totally different.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, so we're done that discussion, right? Okay, وأفتى الشهاب الرملي بوجوب الحج على من بيده وظيفة أمكنه النزول عنها بما يكفيه للحج. So he has a job, he can leave that job. Okay, so you have a full-time job. You ask your employee, can I please go on Hajj? And say, no, I'm sorry, Habib, you can't just go off for like 3 weeks like that. You can't do that. So he says, fine, I want to leave my job, right? So you have to leave your job. أمكنه النزول عنها بما يكفيه للحج. You have enough to support, pay for your bills and food, to go to Hajj and come back, support your family to go to Hajj and come back, and that is it. You're going to come back, and when you come back, you are not going to have a job. وإن لم يكن له غيرها, even if there's no other job, right? Excuse me. ونقل سين ميم عن السيوطي أنه لا يلزم ذلك, right? سين ميم قاسم. Right. So this is Shihab al-Din al-Ramli, the father of Shamsuddin al-Ramli, and this is Ibn Qasim on the Tuhfa, right? And ونقل ابن قاسم عن السيوطي أنه لا يلزم ذلك. So نقل, where does Suyuti say that? I don't know. Right? I'm not sure. He said لا يلزمه ذلك, right? Yes, a similar scenario. Talib was my friend. My friend. So he had a gym. He was managing a gym in San Francisco, and he had a house. Pretty sure. Yeah, he had a house like somewhere near San Francisco. So you can imagine the house is very expensive. So what did he do? Sold it all and took his kids to the Middle East to study. Right. That's like they were all young teens, right? He took his son, I think 14, to Mauritania, something like that, or younger than that. Memorized Quran in Mauritania. So but many people, that's the right mentality. Are you obliged to do that? No, but it's a clever thing to do.
I mean, maybe one could argue for obligation.
Yeah, why not? Okay, والثالث, yeah. I mean, so like I don't know what it's like. You have kids, Talib?
No.
But that when that bridge comes, you're married though, right? Yeah, you're
Yes.
married. So when you come to that bridge, it's going to be, I mean, you spent enough time in Germany. Do you want to raise kids in Germany? Allahu alam,
Never.
So the issue is then you go back to Turkey and like, this is crazy. I mean, I don't know if you visited Turkey recently, but some places in Turkey like, this is insane. It can be worse sometimes, from other reasons. It's just the world is not an easy place to live in. But anyway, there's definitely certain places are much worse than other places. Okay. So الثالث أمن الطريق. Okay, that the place that we say. So so it says أمنا لائقا بالسفر, like it's safe enough to travel. ولو بخفير, you have guards, etc. بأجرة مثله على نفسه وجميع ما يحتاج لاستصحابه لسفره. So assuming now, okay, I have to pay for guards. Okay, how many guards do I need? Well, you need a guard per person plus a guard for every 4 horses that you're traveling with. So how many guards is that? 20. Do you have the money to pay for 20 guards to go there and back? Yes, I do. Okay, sure. All right. Okay. Interesting. So there's a debate here. So we talk about how difficulty, right? Difficulty is we only consider difficulty when it's when it's like general, right? Like a specific difficulty is going to be ignored. So it says, وَلَوْ اخْتَصَّ الْخَوْفُ بِهِ, right? There are people who are specifically after him, right? لم يستقر في ذمته كما اعتمده حاجيم ومحمد رملي, right? So the road is safe, but it's not safe for him, right? Then according to Ibn Hajar Ramli, it's خلاص, it's ثبت في ذمتك, and it's just something, that's not عارض, that's something else. قال الشيخ الإسلام والخطيب, so Shaykh al-Islam, the teacher of Ibn Hajar Ramli, right? And the teacher of the teacher, Ahmad Ramli, and Khatib al-Shibini, يستقر عليه, right? So they say it's not, he's not reliable, he's not reliable, and he doesn't have to do, it's like, yes, that's considered a danger. They say, looking at the general picture, he is still obliged to go on Hajj later on. And he says, well, Adhar, this is a term in the Minhaj, right? Adhar meaning Imam Shafi has two positions. The strongest one is وجوب ركوب البحر ولو على امرأة وجدت محلا تنعزل فيه عن الرجال إن تعين طريقا ولو لجدب الأرض وغلبة السلام فيه وقت سفره. Right. So it says the adhar is that you are obliged to go by sea, even if going by sea or going by air is dangerous. It's obligatory, even for a woman, right? On the proviso that she has a place to be separate from men. وجدت محلا تنعزل فيه عن الرجال. So here, wallahu a'lam, this is going to be relative, right? This is going to be relative. So it says it's obligatory to go by sea, even for a woman, if she finds a place to separate herself from the men. Okay, so number one, going by sea takes ages, right? Whereas going by plane doesn't take months, does it? Okay, that's number one. Number two, when you say, we're talking about like appropriate. So is the fitna? No. Is it appropriate? Right? Meaning, is it considered weird and culturally, like, So here you have this woman who's like, I get in public transport all the time. I'm seen by men and I see men. That's not a problem. That's not going to be an excuse, right? Whereas here we're talking about maybe a society where it's like, I am always around women, right? I do not go out into the street, and now I'm suddenly on this boat with 20 men, right? And I'm now obliged to stay like weeks on end. This is ridiculous, right? This is not la'iq, this is not appropriate, or this is too difficult, right? Okay, wallahu alam. So it says, وَغَلَبَتِ السَّلَامَ فِيهِ وَقْتَ سَفَرِ, as long as it is normally safe. So the fact that it's potentially not safe, right? It does not change anything. The issue is that it's normally safe, right? As long as this is the time of year where it's normally safe, people don't normally sink, there's no issue there, right? And then it says the same thing is going. It says, وَيَجُوزُ لِلْوَلِيُّ رُكُوبُهُ الْبَحْرَ بِنَحْوِ الصَّبِيِّ. Can a parent take the child? So you cannot risk your child's life. You cannot risk your child's wealth. You cannot give your child's wealth away. So can you take your child and your child's wealth on a boat? Yes, you can. إِنْ غَلَبَتَ السَّلَامَةِ وَلَهُ مَصْلَحَ فِيهِ. Providing A, it's safe. B, there's a benefit. So the point is, there's some level of risk, right? There's some level of risk, but it's not normally the case, right? So here, though, we're saying there has to be some kind of maslahah. Otherwise, there is some level of risk for no reason. Why did you risk your child or risk your child's money for no reason, right? Even if it was a low level, right? And then interestingly here, this discussion here is now going to tell you, well, what if it was dangerous? So this is very interesting, right? This is why you have to study the whole of the madhab to find out where discussions are. So bungee jumping, where am I going to find the hukm of bungee jumping? You're going to find it in Hajj, right? Or jihad, right? But you're going to find it here because it's going to say in can I do something that is dangerous, right? So what about, for example, I'm going to go on Hajj and I'm going to go in the stormy season where ships never make it. So, Bismillah, Allahu Akbar, I'm going to go. They can say, no, it's actually haram. So you cannot risk your life. You're doing something that's genuinely dangerous, right? Or quite dangerous for no reason, right? So things like, something I don't know about, like let's say for example, climbing, what's it called? Free climbing, what's it called? When you climb a mountain with no like harness.
Yeah, I think it's free climbing.
Yeah, so that's like insane, right? So is that halal? It's like, well, what's the benefit? Were you trying to save somebody? Were you No, you just recreational is extremely dangerous for no reason, right? And go ahead, Talib.
With regards to the technical term al-Azhar, can we assume that post Minhaj al-Talibin, every work which uses this term intends the technical meaning, or does one have to be careful with it?
By default, here and particularly there's nothing before it, right? It could sometimes mean well fal adharu kada, then what is more apparent is but they don't use that. They'll say فالظاهر كذا. That's what they say. فالظاهر كذا, right? ظاهر كلام فلان is this, right? That's what they wouldn't use the word al-Azhar. Yeah, so Allahu alam. Al-Azhar only means one thing. It means there's اختلاف بين قولين جديدين للشافعي للإمام. Allahu alam. Okie dokie. الرابع وجود الزاد والماء في المواضع المعتاد حمله منها بثمن مثله وهو القدر اللاحق به في ذلك المكان والزمان وعلف الدابة في كل مرحلة. Right, that there is food and water at the places where you normally get it from for the normal price at that place. So it doesn't have to be normal price, right? It could be these 8 drops. Water costs 20 euros a liter. Okay, you buy a liter of water in that place, it is 20 euros, but that's the normal price in that place. Okay, so now we say you're going to stop at these 18 points and it costs 20 to 25 euros. That's the normal price for water in that place per liter. And you're going to have to buy 10 liters at each stop. And I have the money for it. So you're going to add up the stops. Is it safe? Is there food there? Is it normally there? Is there going to be fuel, right? Is it accessible, right? These kind of things. Like my brother was talking about, he's in Kuwait driving to Medina. I was like, oh, that's pretty far, isn't it? I'm thinking about driving through the middle of the desert. I said, how safe is that? He said, well, look, I mean, it's not uninhabited, right? It's not uninhabited. You drive from Kuwait to Mecca, you drive into Saudi, and there's like every now and then there's towns, right? So you're not in the middle of nowhere. وهو القدر اللائق به, and a suitable amount, not that you're just about surviving. في ذلك المكان والزمان, in that time, in that place. وعلف الدابة في كل مرحلة, and each stage where you're going to stop, there will be food to be able to buy for the animals, fodder, etc. Right, it says وإن غلت الأسعار ولا نظر لما مضى. Right, so the issue is these are the prices, not that this person is going to charge you more. But let's say, for example, in 2026, this is how much the fuel costs. When you go on Hajj, if you were to stop at each place to fuel up again, it would cost this, right? It says وكذا لا يجب عليه حج إذا لم يجد أحدهما إلا بأكثر من ثمن مثله وإن قلت الزيادة, right? So it says, so if you can't find food or water except at any of these places, except that it's more expensive than other things. So that water is usually 20 to 25 euros per liter, which is extremely expensive. And he's selling it for 35. Right? There's one place where he's selling it for 35. لا يجب. Right? وإن قلت الزيادة. It says ونقل محمد الرملي والخطيب عن الدميري. So Damiri, he has a sharh. So if you look at the late shuruh of the Minhaj, they're basically all the same word by word. So what people are doing is they are just gently shifting words around. Okay, because there's probably like in that final period between Ibn Hajar and Nawawi, maybe there's like 500 commentaries on the Minhaj, something like that. I don't know how many there are. Like everybody's commenting, right? So there's certain ones that stood out, and so you find, so of them, for example, is a Damiri, which is a Najm al-Wahhaj, right? So our author doesn't have a Najm al-Wahhaj, but it has. So what I have to understand is, whenever a book comes along and becomes the main important book, the other books kind of die. So it might. So we have it in a manuscript somewhere, but these people don't. Usually they don't. Right? So it's often that they're not doing that. So today I have it here to my right. But I can actually I'll have a look at it right now, just to make the point. Whereas here he's saying wanaqala. He's using a secondary source. He's not saying that it's there. And Dar al-Minhaj should also, because they actually printed, this is Dar al-Minhaj, but maybe they printed it much later. Dar al-Minhaj printed Damiri's commentary, right? أنه يغتفر الزيادة اليسيرة. If it's a bit more, so it's 20 to 25, it was 27, right? Between 20 to 25 euros, he's saying for 27 to 28, okay? لأنه لا بدل له, because there's nothing else. بخلاف ماء الطهارة, right? So with tayammum, right? With tayammum, if the water, you can make tayammum if the water is being sold more, even by a small amount. If it's a small amount, the water is being sold, it's 20 to 25, it's being sold for 26. Khalas, you can make tayammum instead. You're not expected to pay an extra euro, right? But here, al-Damiri is saying, no, it's a bit more than that, because it doesn't have a substitute. There's no substitute for food and water. So it's a different kind of thing. So let me have a quick look. Just give me 1 second here. Just want to pull this out just to check. Okay, so as we said that what was it that we found this naql here? Where were we? This naql here. So Ba'shan or Ba'ishan, he does naql from Muhammad Ramli from Damiri. So why is he doing naql? Because he doesn't have Damiri, right? And so, as we mentioned, that basically books would go out of fashion and then they've just become a manuscript somewhere, right? And now we're going to try to dig them up today, right? So that's an important kind of whole concept there. We mentioned that whole issue there. Okay, so then the next point then is, does a woman have to go on? So it says here, the khamis is for a woman, she has to go on Hajj with a mahram. So she either has a mahram. So her husband or brother will go with her. He says, even if he's fasiq, okay, and even if she has to pay. لأنه يغار عليها من مواضع الريب. Right? نعم لو علم أنه لا يغار عليها لم يكفي. Right? So unfortunately, that was the answer that I gave recently, and somebody who saw the Q&A, right? Was a woman is traveling with her husband, and her husband is her pimp. May Allah protect us. So that's not a mahram, is it? That doesn't protect her from, So we're particularly interested. What they're talking about is things to do with intercourse, things to do with, so that there's somebody that's going to be like, hey, that wouldn't happen because this person's around, right? لأنه يغار عليها ولو علمه لا يغار عليها, doesn't care, right? أو مراهقا, so he's a young boy. أو أعمى, blind. له حذاقة, right? He knows what's going on, right? He knows what's going on, you know. So that's the group. So either a mahram or husband. It says walau bi ujrati mithlin, even if she has to pay for it. So say, do you have the money to go on Hajj? Yes. Do you have the money to get your can you fly your husband there and back? So yeah. Okay, he doesn't want to go for free. Are you happy to pay him? So he doesn't want to go. He doesn't want to pay for his ticket, and he doesn't want to do it for free. So you got to pay him ajrul mithl. What would you normally pay somebody to try just to fly all the way to Saudi Arabia and fly back again? So the flight plus the work of going there and coming back, right? Or your brother or something like that, right? She has the money to pay for all of these things, right? So they're not obliged to do tabarru'an. They're not obliged to do that. The brother is not obliged to go and take his sister on Hajj. The husband's not obliged to do that. So they can do it, therefore it's not obliged. Therefore you can do it for money, right? So you can be paid by your wife to, you know, I think you should get paid by your wife to go shopping, right? I'll buy you anything you want, just pay me. Go ahead, Talib.
I assume that the husband or the mahram would not be obliged to accept the payment at that, and at the end he would always be his how should I put it, voluntary decision whether or not he takes her.
100%. So it's not yeah, he's not obliged to do that, of course, yeah.
So like the mahram has the ultimate grip on this issue.
It's not a grip, is that it's not that he can control her, is that she can't go without him.
I meant like the obligation aspect, at least. Like the husband decides basically whether or not it's obligatory, like if that's a proper way to put it.
Yeah, 100%. So the husband is something different, right? The husband, that's totally different, because also he has a haqq, thabit, what's the word? What's the opposite of what's it called? Mu'ajjal, like ajil, right? Haqq ajil, like it's now. Like every single moment he has a haqq over her. So therefore, yes, it doesn't. It's so without his permission, she can't go, right? That's something else. But the brother is different. She can go, but the issue is by default she couldn't go. That he's not obliged to go with her. Basically, she's not obliged to go. So or she has niswa thiqat, right? So now this is a number of women, right? A number of women, and they are thiqat. So again, the same criterion. So they don't all have to be awliya, right? They don't all have to be awliya. So it says dhawatu adalatin, right? And so it says وَيَتَّجِهُ الْإِكْتِفَاء بِمُرَاهِقَاتِ بِقَيْدِهِ السَّابِقِ. So maybe they could be young girls, like they're all preteens, a bunch of preteens. So they're safe. And you're traveling with a bunch of preteens, but all of them are old enough to be the chaperone, if that makes sense, right? To be a chaperone, like my grandma, my nonna in Italy. You know, when she was with my granddad, she had to be my sister. You can't just you can't walk in the park by yourself, like that kind of thing. Like her sister had to be there, right? You can't just be there by yourself, right? So, so that's what's it called? So that's murahiqat. So a bunch of 12-year-old girls. They're all taking their 13-year-old girl sister who's on Hajj, right? وبمحارم فسقهن بغير زنا وقيادة, right? They are fasiqat, so they're not religious. They're all non-hijabis. They don't pray. They all want to go on Hajj, right? But they don't pray. They just want to go on Hajj. But none of them commit zina. They don't commit zina. They don't encourage her to commit zina. Nor are they. Qiyada is female pimp, qaida, female pimp, right? So they're not trying to find men to sleep with her for money, right? So that kind of, so the whole issue is, would somebody say something, do practical things to stop something happening, right? وَإِن لَمْ يَكُنْ مَعَهُنَّ نَحْوُ مَحْرَمٍ لِإِحْدَهُنَّ, even if none of them have any mahrams, right? And he says وَاعْتَمَدَ فِي شَرْحَيْ الْمَنْهَجِ وَالتَّحْرِيرِ. So he relied upon in his sharh of the manhaj and the tahrir, meaning this is Shaykh al-Islam Zakir Ansari, ومحمد والخطيب الاكتفاء باثنين. that you can have two, that there's 3 women in total, 2 friends. وقال الكردي ومحله إن كانت واحدة منها لا تفارقها, assuming that there's one always with her, right? There's one always with her. She goes to the bathroom with one. She goes off, so there's always one, right? So وأما الجواز, so this is in terms of wujub. So she has a husband, a brother, or a group of women. That's in terms of wujub. أما الجواز فلها أن تخرج لفرض الإسلام ككل واجب ولو وحدها إذا أمنت. Okay? So she can travel for any fard, meaning the fard al-Islam, meaning her first obligatory Hajj or Umrah by herself, as long as she's safe in her own private jet. She's going to fly over the Atlantic in her own private jet, as long as she's safe, right? إذا أمنت, as long as she's safe. ومن الواجب خروج المرأة إلى محل حراثتها. She has to go and work in the field. لأن طلب الحلال واجب ولو شابة, right? So she's not married, she doesn't have anyone to support her. She has to go out and work. She has to commute to work because she has no job in her own city. She has to have an operation in another city. Her husband has commanded her to travel. I command you to come to me. Right? So now it's wajib for her to go, and so she can go without mahram. To visit her Sufi sheikh, right? I'm pretty sure they mentioned that's in Sharwani or in Ibn Qasim, right? Your ustaz, to visit one's ustad, right? One's Sufi sheikh, right? لكنهن قد فرطن في عدم ستر جميع البدن وغيره. Right? So it says, yes, it's true, you can go out and work. However, فرطن, they have fallen short because they don't cover their bodies properly. Right? Okay, inshallah, we'll stop here. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد. So this is a very important naql. We saw 2 or 3 important commentary points here in the naql here, right? So women and al-haja tanzil manzilat darura. Right? I remember speaking to Sheikh Amjad about this. Al-haja tanzil manzil darura. So this is all darura. She can go for the wajib, so darura. Her work. The only work she can do is in the field over there. She has to leave the village and go to the field over there. Fine. But al-haja tanzil manzil darura, a difficulty. It'd be very hard for her not to travel. She hasn't seen her mum for 15 years, and her mum cannot afford to fly to her, and she can't fly her brother. Something like that, right? Very difficult. There'll be mashaqqa shadida if you didn't travel. It'd be really difficult. Many scenarios like that today, because we move around so much, right? There's many scenarios that would not literally be darura, but it'd be like darura, right? Not to mention that in the Maliki school, they allow a woman to travel in public transport. So as long as she's in public transport, it's fine. You know, she goes on a train from her sit town to the trains to the airport, from the airport on the train to the plane to the bus. It's fine. She's not considered traveling aslan. She's not even considered traveling because she's considered always to be around people. She's driving in main roads where there's always people. It's fine. خير إن شاء الله stop there. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك.